Hey guys, welcome to my channel, English for IT Professionals. And in this lesson we have 5 expressions for sprint planning meetings. So let's go. Quick introduction. My name is Terry. I'm an English teacher from Ireland. I know my accent isn't very Irish. I speak French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, and I have 14 years professional experience teaching. I'm also a Udemy instructor with almost 200,000 students. I have courses about job interviews, grammar, software engineering, English for software engineers, and you can check out all my courses and my stuff in my link tree here. So, 5 expressions, and the objective is to help you feel ready to understand the expression and then later start to feel ready to use them in a sprint planning meeting. Now, here are the 5 expressions, and please write your own examples in the comments and I can give you a little bit of feedback. It's also writing practice for you guys. So, expression 1 is the priority for this sprint is to an achieve goal, where we use this at the start of sprint planning to align the team on key objectives, make sure everyone knows the main focus of the sprint. Now, we do have this expression, the priority for this sprint is to achieve the goal, but you also have an aspect where you can have different words for priority, different variations. The priority for the sprint, our main focus, the key objective, or the top priority, or the number 1 priority. Now, when we look at the pronunciation, just look carefully here. So, priority. Notice how it's priority. This third I is priority. Next one is objective. So 3 syllables. The first syllable you have this very close contact here, ob. The next one is object, and later is tiv. Not tiv, but tiv. Objective. The next word is focus. So the strong syllable is the first syllable. It's not focus or something like that. Focus. And then the word achieve. Notice that the first syllable, the letter A, is achieve. Now, see, some examples for this are the priority for this sprint is to deliver the new authentication feature. Our main focus for this sprint is to fix the critical login bug. And the top priority for this sprint is to optimize page load times. Now, let's look at some classic common mistakes that some of my students have like a low to intermediate level of students of English. And one of the classic problems is to forget the word to. You see this phrase, the priority for this sprint is beep, achieve the goal. Where it's a lot of other languages, you don't need a word to before the verb. But just remember that when you are using this expression, it's a very common mistake, okay? Just try to be careful. The correct is the priority for this sprint is to achieve the goal. Now, when you start to answer or maybe give more information and you're starting your sentence with a verb, it's very important to remember that it's much better, not much better, it's correct to use the ing with the verb. Because the ing in English can be 3 things, not just the present continuous, but it can be a gerund or like an activity. So for example, fixing the bug is our main focus. You can see here that if you say fix the bugs, our main focus, I can understand, but it's a direct translation from other languages. Now, the other thing here is if you have like the main focus or priority, this is singular. So for example, the main focus is UI fixes, okay? The focus is singular. Now, with priority and focus, it's singular, but of course, if you put priority into plural, you say the priorities are. So you can say the priority for this sprint is, the priorities are, and the focus for this sprint is. Expression 2. How much time should we allocate to the task? This is used when talking about the time you need, the time required, and helps teams manage their capacity. So as we look here at allocate, which is a verb, a very important verb in Sprint and Agile. We have here, how much time should we allocate to? And the different variations of the expression of what's the estimated time required for? Another variation is how many hours should we dedicate to and the task? And what time frame should we assign to? So we have the original expression of how much time should we allocate to, and then you have different variations of required for, dedicate to, or assign to. Now let's look again at the pronunciation of this. Allocate, allocate, estimated. So notice this estimated. It's not estimated, but estimated. Estimated. Next one is dedicate. Again, second syllable is not strong. It's dedicate. And the next one is required. One more time. Required. So some examples. How much time should we allocate to debugging the login issue? What's the estimated time required for refactoring the code base? How many hours should we dedicate to testing the new API? So when you're using allocate to, dedicate to, or required for, you're using a preposition before a verb. And a basic rule is that if you have a preposition and a verb, the verb must have ing in the gerund. So it's always correct to say, how much time should we allocate to testing? How many hours should we dedicate to this? Or for example, how much time should we allocate to debugging the login issue? If you see here, if you say, how much time should we allocate to debug the login issue? I can understand, but it's not correct. It's not grammatically correct. And then again, dedicate to in the gerund. How many hours should we dedicate to testing? And notice here that to test the API is I can understand again, but it's incorrect, okay? Now again, with the last example, what's the estimated time required for refactoring? And notice that with two examples here of what's incorrect, of what can be a problem with students, or students can have problems, sorry, is what's the estimated time required for refactoring is the correct. But to say for refactor or for to refactor is you're confusing a little bit or translating directly, okay? Expression 3. Do we have enough information to start and the task? This is used to confirm if you have all the necessary requirements and details informations and to help prevent misunderstandings. So again, variations of this expression. Is the information sufficient to begin task? Do we have all the details needed to start the task? Do we have all the details needed to get started? That's another variation of like to start and then to get started. Are we clear enough on the task to proceed? Now, as we look here at sufficient, it's a little bit more formal. It means the same thing as enough, okay? Now, again, the pronunciation of enough, I know that you can spell E-N-O-U-G-H. Pronunciation is an F sound. Enough, enough. And then information, that's an easy one. So some examples here. Do we have enough information to start designing the dashboard? Is the information sufficient to begin implementing the search functionality? And are we clear enough on the API requirements to proceed? So one common mistake that you see with the word enough is sometimes students add the word of, where it's really like, do we have enough information? Because enough information is an uncountable noun, but in English we have countable, uncountable. But in this case, we don't need of, just do we have enough information? Now, with this one here, with details, you need the article the in this because there's specific details. And I know a lot of languages don't have the word the or a or an. And the basic idea of when you're using the if it's not in your language, for example, Polish or Korean or Russian, you need, in this case, you absolutely need to, do we have all the details needed? Do we have all the necessary details? Just be careful not to forget the word the. One more common mistake is that if you're using sufficient, you will use do we have sufficient information and not to say do we have sufficiently information. The basic idea is that sufficient describes a noun or a thing, and sufficiently at the end describes a verb. It describes the way. For example, you did not test sufficiently because it's describing the verb, okay? Expression 4. Can we break task down into smaller steps? This is when you have big tasks and you need to bring them down into smaller, more manageable parts. To break something down into. This is a very important expression, phrasal verb that you will hear a lot in Agile and Scrum, talking about the process of separating something complex into smaller, manageable parts. That's the essence of Agile and Scrum and working in sprints. To break something down into. Now, I do need to explain a little bit about this word because you can use it as a verb to break something down into, and you can also use it as a noun. A breakdown is a noun, talking about like the description or a plan. Can you give me a breakdown? Or the project breakdown outlines each development phase. We need a breakdown of the sprint tasks by priority, okay? Now, again, I just need to be clear that you can also see breakdown as the failure of a system, machine, or process. You see it with communication breakdown or the breakdown of the deployment pipeline, delayed the release by 2 days. Everybody who has a Windows laptop, you've seen a breakdown, the blue screen and the letters, that's a system breakdown. Or a breakdown in version control led to conflicting changes in the code base. And you can see this outside of context of IT. You can talk about like communication breakdown and negotiations and this stuff. Now, with break something down into, we do have two alternatives that are maybe easier to pronounce or use. You can say divide this task into smaller parts, or is it possible to split this task into smaller steps? Okay, so split or divide into. Now, it's very important that in English, in this case, the word into is talking about when you have one big task and you separate, you split, you divide, we always use the word into. So a very common mistake when people are trying to use this phrasal verb is to say something, can we break this to smaller steps? Can we break this in smaller steps? When it really always needs to be, can we break this into smaller steps? Now, with our friend ChatGTP, this is the best image I could get to show the idea of like a chocolate bar, and you're breaking something from a bigger into smaller. Divide into, split into, break into, all right? Our old friend, ChatGTP. Now, when we look here about to break something down into, I would say that's the best way to say it. It is technically possible to say, can we break it into smaller steps? It's okay, it's simpler, less formal, but I really think like the native ways is to break something down into. Down in this case is like the idea of reducing from something big to small, okay? From something big to small. Examples. Can we break the user onboarding feature down into smaller steps? Would it make sense to divide the testing process into smaller parts? Can we break the database migration task down into manageable pieces? Now again, I always recommend if you're going to use this, don't forget the word down and don't forget the word into. Expression 5. Should we include task in this sprint or defer it? This expression is used to decide if a task should be worked on now or later, this sprint, next sprint, or what you're doing. Some variations are, should we include the task in the sprint or defer it? Should we add task to the sprint or wait until the next one? Do we include task in the sprint or hold off for now? It's a little bit more formal version of saying wait until the next one, wait until later. Should we prioritize task for this sprint or postpone it? So you have 4 or 5 expressions or verbs that are very similar. Defer, postpone, basically the same thing. Wait until the next one is the simplest way to say it. And an important phrasal verb is hold off for now. Again, they all mean basically the same thing. So one really important thing about using the word should, and the first thing is the pronunciation, that the L is silent. The pronunciation should does not exist. It's should. It's a very short sound. It's should, okay? Now, if you're asking a question with should, it's always better to change the word order. This is very important with words like can, could, would, must, will in English, where a lot of languages, the majority of languages in the world, don't change the word order, you just change the tone. And that's where a lot of students have like, we should do it, when really the native speaker will always ask, should we do it? So that's important. If you're going to ask and use the word should in a meeting, you should have it clear to say, should we? And practice pronunciation. Should we? Should I? Can I? Could I? Okay? Should we include this in this task? Should we include this task in the sprint? Now again, with should, it's very important just to remember, and just a quick revision on the grammar, is that with the negative, we use the word not. In the question, we change the word order. So for example, don't, you never use don't with should. Or you will never ask a question using do with should. So it's should, should not contracts to shouldn't, and then should we, okay? Now the pronunciation here is defer, right? And then postpone. See that last syllable? Postpone. Some examples. Should we include the UI redesign in the sprint or defer it? Should we add the API integration to the sprint or wait until the next sprint? Do we include the database migration in the sprint or hold off for now? Should we prioritize the bug fixes for the sprint or postpone them? So here's just a quick dialogue which models and shows a little bit of all of them together. Let me just read it for you. I will read it because I don't like AI voices. Hello team, the priority for this sprint is to make the checkout faster. Users don't like waiting, so it's our focus. Got it. How much time should we allocate to fixing the payment system? That part seems slow. Maybe 3 days. But do we have enough information to start that task? I'm not sure about the payment rules yet. Fair point. I'll get the details by tomorrow. Also, can we break the checkout design down into smaller steps? It feels like a big job. Yes, we could split it. First the layout, then the coding. 2 days each? Looks good. One more thing. There's a request for a coupon feature. Should we include it in this sprint or defer it? Let's defer it. Checkout speed matters more now. Okay, let's go with this plan. So end of lesson review, we have the 5 expressions. The priority for the sprint is to achieve the goal. How much time should we allocate to a task? Do we have enough information to start this task? Can we break tasks down into smaller steps? Should we include task in the sprint or defer it? Write your own examples in the comments so I can get some feedback. And also, if you can give me feedback on this lesson, if you have questions or suggestions or doubts or insults, I'm open. It's fine. Insult me if you want. It's YouTube. It's the internet. But write your own examples in the comments, and I can't wait to communicate with you guys. So please click like, subscribe, tell a friend about this channel. If you have a friend who's learning English for IT or to work in an international company, I can help you with that. And you can find me and my courses on udemy.com and Udemy Business. I have courses for English speaking, grammar, really cool job interview lessons, especially technical job interviews, English for software engineers, and some other courses. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here until the end, thank you. Click like, and I'll see you guys in the next video.